Who is Donald Trump? Is he a greedy and selfish Nazi like the Democrats would have us believe? Or is he generous and kind?
Donald Trump would sell this country for $1 if it meant lining his own pockets and greasing the palms of his Wall Street friends.
I met him in 2005 when I competed in the Miss USA pageant representing the state of Wisconsin. He owned the Miss Universe organization at the time. And so I met him then, and I had won Miss Congeniality, and we had kind of formed a little special connection then where he had greeted me, calling me Miss Personality. And then years later, I'm now ill, been fighting really hard for my life. And years later, he reached out to me when he heard the news, and in the hospital had sent me just letters and signed photos and just saying, stay brave, and you're the strongest woman I know, and really got me through a lot of these tough times, especially coming from someone I have looked up to my entire life. And then I wrote him a letter to thank him and explaining to him how he changed my life.
How did you feel when you came out there at that rally, you got Trump's attention, he spoke directly to you? How did you feel?
Really, I don't think words can express the way I felt. I was really overcome with emotion. I wanted to thank him. I was afraid that, when my day comes and I'm not here anymore, that I was never going to get a chance to thank him in person. And I just felt like through a letter wasn't enough. And so it was emotional, it was overwhelming, and I was so thankful that he took the time to hear my words and then ultimately, leave the stage and come hug me in the audience, and he did make a promise that my son would be taken care of. So,
Melissa, I'm almost out of time.
Thank you.
But I want to make the point.
Yes, sir.
The Donald Trump we see in public is tough guy, somewhat harsh. But you know him in private, you know him personally. Is he a gentle man in person?
Yes. He is the kindest man I have ever met. I think he has a heart of gold. I was surprised too when I first met him and developed this beautiful relationship. But he is the most generous, kind man, and he does so many things that he does not talk about, like what he has done for my son. He doesn't toot his own horn when it comes to a lot of things. He does these beautiful things like he has done for me, these kind gestures, without ever speaking of them. And so I'm so thankful that I was able to share that.
The mainstream media cuts President Trump very little slack and goes out of their way to cover up his many accomplishments since he's been in office. But it goes back much further than that. For decades, Donald Trump has been quietly helping Americans from all backgrounds, without any praise or credit from the media. As it turns out, the businessman turned president has a long history of random acts of kindness. For example, the president is a champion of women's rights, and going all the way back to 1980, Trump hired Barbara Rez to be the head of construction for his organization. She was just one of many women Trump promoted into prominent positions in construction at a time when the industry was dominated by men, with Trump even saying that a good woman is better than 10 good men. As a result, Barbara says she may have been the first woman in U.S. history to build a skyscraper. A few years later, in 1988, a Jewish family were desperate to find help for their critically ill son, who was just 3 years old and needed a flight from Los Angeles to New York for emergency treatment. But all the commercial airlines refused to fly their son because he needed to travel with several large pieces of medical equipment. Running out of hope, the family reached out to Donald Trump, who they said didn't even hesitate and agreed to have his private jet fly the family and their sick son to New York for treatment. The boy's father said, quote, "Donald Trump is a miracle, just a miracle." In 1991, witnesses say that while Trump was riding in his limo, he spotted a man being brutally attacked by a mugger with a baseball bat. Trump ordered the limo to pull over and jumped out of the car, shouting at the man to drop the bat, who, according to witnesses, then fled the scene. In 2008, singer and actress Jennifer Hudson's mother, brother, and nephew were all murdered at their home in Chicago. In another unexpected gesture of kindness, Trump reached out to the grief-stricken Hudson and offered to house her and her relatives at Trump Tower in Chicago for free. At the time, People magazine praised Trump for his, quote, heart of gold, with Trump saying he just wanted to help protect her and her family. A few years later, in 2013, bus driver Darnell Barton stopped to help a woman who he thought looked like she was about ready to jump off a bridge. Donald Trump heard about the story and sent Barton a $10,000 check for his good deed, saying, quote, your quick thinking resulted in a life being saved, and for that, you should be rewarded. The next year, in 2014, U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Andrew Timoresi was arrested in Mexico and held for 7 months after he accidentally brought firearms across the border. Trump followed the case, and when Andrew was finally released and returned to the United States, Trump reached out and sent him a check for $25,000, thanking him for his service and bravery. But that's not the first or last time Donald Trump stood up to help America's veterans. In 2015, then presidential hopeful Trump stepped in to help Army veteran Todd Landon, who was critically wounded in an IED attack in Iraq back in 2006. Trump was holding a rally in Iowa and came down off the stage to speak with Landon, who told him about all the problems he was having getting proper care with the VA, which he said was rife with problems. Trump vowed to help Landon out, intervened with the VA on his behalf, and the very next day, Landon said the VA contacted him and shortly after approved compensation payments for his injuries. Trump took it a step further after he was elected president, and reversing nearly a decade of neglect from Obama, Trump forgave the student debts of nearly 50,000 permanently disabled veterans. In 2017, President Trump heard that the family of Army Corporal Dylan Baldridge was struggling after their son was killed in Afghanistan. Vowing his support for the family, President Trump personally sent them a check for $25,000 and instructed his staff to create an online fundraising page to help the family out. These are the stories the mainstream media doesn't want you to know about. And they're just a few of the many examples over the years of when President Trump took a stand and helped people who, in many cases, had nowhere else to turn. No one expected Trump to help. It's not mentioned in any of his campaign promotions, and he never makes any big speeches about it. He just did the right thing because no one else would, and it needed to be done. For One American News, I'm Pearson Sharp.
Well, many people thought the skating rink in Central Park was abandoned, but now there is something to cheer about. The Wollman Skating Rink in Central Park is open again. The city spent nearly 6 years and $12 million trying to fix it, and then to the rescue, developer Donald Trump. As Tracy Egan tells us now, he accomplished in 3.5 months what the city couldn't do in 6 years.
Mayor Koch and Donald Trump shook hands and came out complimenting each other for reopening Wollman Rink.
Donald, you performed a great public service.
No roadblocks were put up. In fact, it was the exact opposite. We've gotten our permits, our approvals. We've gotten everything as quickly as it could be gotten.
Everything included the city's permission to step in and finish the project, originally scheduled for completion in 1982, but repeatedly delayed.
We executed quickly. We came in 3 months ahead of schedule, and we saved this entire season, which really we're very happy about. And we also came in $750,000 under budget.
Please share this video and help Trump and America win in November.